Hey there, so glad you're here. This is Reddit Stories Podcast. Relax, you're safe here. Here's our first story. Karen saved my dog, then demanded money. I'm Alex, 27, female, just your average dog parent, and I walk my pup Benny every morning without expecting any drama. One Saturday, we were strolling the avenue. The sun was just rising, the neighborhood was mostly quiet. Benny saw a squirrel, pulled hard, and dragged me into the street before I even registered what was happening. Horns blared, and I froze up in anxiety. Then this woman in a bright yellow bathrobe, who was out getting her mail, just appeared like a superhero, scooped Benny up, and pulled me back out of traffic. Benny looked up at me like he had just won the lottery, and I was still trying to catch my breath, heart thumping. Karen scowled at me and said, "You should be more careful. People get hurt, you know." No soft, "you're okay," just straight talk. I said, "Thank you. I feel like I owe you everything." She shrugged and began to walk off. I asked for her number, just to send her a proper thank you, and she reluctantly gave it to me. Later that afternoon, I texted her. "Hi, Karen. This is Alex, self-appointed dog parent that nearly got roadkill. Thank you a million times. I'd love to grab coffee and properly say thanks." I waited. Nothing. The next day I texted again, hoping she was okay. Silence. By Wednesday she replied, "You're welcome. I'd be okay with a small favor for my trouble." That text took me off guard. A favor? I asked what she meant. No reply. Then the next day there was another message. She said I owed her $50 for time and emotional strain. $50? For catching my dog? I typed, "Wait, what?" She said she lost time at her errands getting involved. I tried honey instead of vinegar. "How about coffee or cookies?" She said no. $50 was the minimum. I was in shock. Over the next few days, it felt impossible to bump into her without awkwardness. I almost considered small claims court, not because I wanted payment, but because the whole thing was insane. Then she texts again. "I don't want money. I want acknowledgement." I offered a coffee like a normal neighbor. She shot back that I was cheap and I had a moral obligation. Moral obligation? To thank her? Okay, that was new. The tension grew. I couldn't enjoy dog walks without worrying I'd run into her. People on my Facebook community asked about it. Half thought it was ridiculous, the other half worried why I wasn't paying up. I hated how small it made me feel. So I decided to outsmart Karen. I baked 24 chocolate chip cookies. Nothing fancy. Warm, melty basket on a napkin. Just a gesture. I rang her doorbell, cookies in hand, and said, "Karen, thank you again for saving Benny. These are for you, no strings." She opened the door, arms crossed, but glazed over at the cookies. Benny barked. I added, "No bill, no favor, no drama." She paused, then let herself smile. I watched the tension dribble away. Our conversation lasted 10 minutes longer than expected. She mentioned her health wasn't great. I said if she ever needed dog walks or help, I'd do it. She said she'd like that. Feeling good, I walked away, thinking that was the end of it. But life had other plans. 2 days later, a package arrived on my porch. It was a hamper filled with a brand new collar, toys, and a dog shampoo labeled, "Thanks, defensive dog mom." A note said that I should pay, but this was interim. Huh? I was not expecting a bribe lamp disguised as an apology. Clever, but still part of the ongoing weirdness. Okay, I thought, we're in negotiation territory. So I took a photo of the hamper and replied via my community group chat. "Consider the new toys promotional collateral." Then he says thanks. I posted a little video of him with a squeaky toy, captioned, "When Karen gifts you unpaid labor, no charge." It went micro-viral in our neighborhood group. She saw that post within the hour. The next morning, I woke up to 6 missed calls and a text. "I'd like to talk in person." I responded with a calm, "Sure, let's meet for coffee tomorrow, toward the end of the block, 10 a.m. We sat outside that morning. She looked deflated, but more honest than before. She said she felt invisible, Thought saving Benny would finally get someone's attention. She expected me to do something big to show that I cared. I said I get it. I told her how lousy it felt to be asked to pay for decency. She nodded, tearful. I said, I'll walk your dog Wednesday mornings, no charge, just neighborly trade. She reluctantly smiled, but I also made clear I wouldn't be manipulated anymore. She understood, I think. Except that's not the ending. A week later, a bill for pet insurance landed in my mailbox. $100 billed to third-party service under her name. I called the insurance company and found out she had added Benny to her monthly payments, implying I owed it. I calmly called her out. She stuttered about doing something nice. I told her I'd reverse it. No thanks needed, and I'd keep walking her dog Wednesday mornings because drama should stay off the block. She looked deflated. That was the last I heard from her. She tries to wave from across the street now. I smile. Benny pants excitedly at her too. But I'm clear. Neighborliness doesn't come tagged with a ledger. Sometimes you have to hand out cookies just to keep the street sane. So Karen, you saved the dog, then tried to charge her $100? Heroism isn't free, Reddit boy. I had emotional expenses. You tried to turn a thank you into a Venmo request. It was a reasonable invoice. For emotional labor? Karen, it was a dog, not a tax audit. I know I'm just kidding, but seriously, if someone ever tried to pull this crap with me, I'd laugh at them, tell them they're insane, and walk away, never speaking to them again. But that wouldn't involve overthinking anything, and that's where most of these stories come from, overthinking. My brother asked me for $10,000 to join a luxury alpha mindset network. A few months ago, I, 29 male, got one of those phone calls that makes you stop mid-sip of coffee because you just know nothing good is coming. It was from my older brother, who's 32 male, and he had an idea. He's had a lot of ideas. Waffles, my dog, looked at me like, what now? And honestly, that's kind of how I feel every time my brother calls. We've walked two very different paths into adulthood. I pay my rent, go to work, keep a budget spreadsheet, and feed a dog who is somehow more responsible than my brother. Meanwhile, he treats adulthood like it's one long hackathon where you're allowed to reboot your entire personality every 6 months. His list of failed ventures is legendary in the family. He once tried to build a sneaker reselling empire only to end up with 3 pairs of Jordans collecting dust in mom's garage. He started a podcast called Grind Mode Activated that was so unpopular, I don't think even he listened back to it. There was his 2-week crypto phase that ended with him rage-deleting Coinbase because the vibes were off. Then there was the time he tried to trademark the phrase boss energy. I asked him what it was for, and he said, clothing, maybe supplements, maybe an airline, depends how far it scales. At the lowest point, at least in my book, was the app pitch. He wanted me to invest in an app that finds other apps. I said, that's literally what the App Store is. He stared at me like I had just insulted Steve Jobs. Yeah, but mine's for alpha apps. I had no response. So when the phone rang that Thursday morning, I already braced myself. I answered, and he goes, Yo, bro, how much do you love me? Me. It depends. Are you calling from jail or the hospital? He chuckled. Neither. This is about an opportunity. Big time. Life-changing. And then he asked me for $10,000. I nearly choked on my coffee. When I pressed him for what, he started throwing around buzzwords like vertical wealth expansion and high-frequency energy alignment. I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He explained that he was buying into one of those flashy entrepreneur brotherhoods you see advertised online. They're real enough if you go looking, but for the sake of this story, we'll just call it Opulence Collective. Later, he sent me the pitch deck. It looked like it had been designed during detention in 2007. The very first slide read, Welcome to Opulence Collective. Multiply your money, master your mind, magnetize millions. Inside, it outlined their program. A $10,000 buy-in for access to weekly Zoom calls about Inner warrior potential or something, plus monthly trips to Scottsdale where members stayed at Airbnbs, wore matching tank tops, and had breakthrough sessions on topics like quantum cash flow, whatever that means. When I asked him what they were actually selling, the only answer he had was mindset, which to me sounded a lot like nothing. He didn't like my skepticism. He told me I was being small minded, that I was jealous, that I was just another sheep stuck in the 9 to 5 matrix. He even accused me of operating at a low vibrational frequency. Meanwhile, my dog Waffles was next to me on the couch, licking peanut butter off of a spoon, and somehow managing to live a more stable life than him. I pointed out Elon Musk didn't start with tank tops screaming, "Hustle until heaven." He shot back that I'd never understand what it takes to think big. Then he pulled the family card, saying our mom would have wanted me to believe in him. All I could think was that mom also wanted him to stop using her Netflix password 3 years after she passed. That was the end of the call. He blocked me soon after on social media, messaging apps, and bizarrely enough, even on Venmo. I didn't even know Venmo had blocking, and I had to Google it. About a week later, I got a message from an unknown number. It was a voice note. When I pressed play, I nearly dropped my phone. There were ocean wave sounds in the background, and then his voice, soft and slow, saying he forgave me. Not everyone was ready to ascend, he said, but when I was, the circle would still be waiting. I laughed so hard that Waffles stared at me like I'd lost it. These days, my brother is fully immersed in Opulence Collective. He hasn't earned a cent, but he posts shirtless videos of himself pacing in the park while shouting about abundance and warning that people who think rich will die poor. He invested in a ring light and a drone, so now his affirmations come with professional lighting and sweeping aerial footage. Honestly, sometimes it seems like the drone is more committed than he is. He also travels to Scottsdale for the monthly gatherings. From the pictures and videos I've seen, their so-called rituals mostly involve group push-ups on the patio of a rented Airbnb. In one clip, he was doing push-ups on the beach next to a man I recognized as someone who once tried to sell me mushrooms outside a gas station. This time, the guy was wearing a tank top that said, "Quantum Hustle Captain." There are even membership, or ranks is what I believe they're called, levels. 10,000 gets you bronze, 15,000 makes you silver. At 25,000, you're diamond, which comes with the perk of a private dinner with the founder at a cheesecake factory in Scottsdale. I looked up the founder. The man has 2 eviction notices and a YouTube channel with 14 subscribers. That's who my brother insists is going to make him rich. At this point, I don't know whether to laugh, cry, or just start drafting a pitch for Netflix. Because if this isn't a documentary waiting to happen, I honestly don't know what is. I lost it at Quantum Hustle Captain. I've seen these guys at airports before. They're the ones trying to sell each other courses about how to sell courses about selling courses. To be honest, I wouldn't even be mad. He blocked you on Venmo before he could start spamming you with 10,000 money requests. That might be the most financially responsible decision he's ever made. It sounds like your brother got caught in one of those mastermind scams that prey on people who want shortcuts to success. The sad part is, he probably won't listen until he runs out of money or they move on to the next trend. All you can really do is protect yourself financially and keep Waffles company while it plays out. So he dropped 10 grand just to do push-ups in Scottsdale? 10 grand? For that price, the tank top better spot him on the bench press. How about the drone? Honestly, the drone deserves the diamond tier. At least it's putting in the work. Am I the jerk for not wanting to be my ex's caretaker? I'm making this post because I want to show my ex later. I don't feel like I'm in the wrong here, but since I'm close to the situation, I'd like some outside perspective. My ex walked out on our family several years ago. He claimed he needed to live his truth or whatever. I won't get into all the details, but it revolved around chasing excitement and putting his own wants over his responsibilities. He left me with 3 children to raise on my own. From the moment he left, he never once stepped up. He didn't pay child support. He worked under the table and found ways to avoid any legal accountability. Most of the time, he didn't even acknowledge the kids. When I'd call him out, he'd either disappear for months or make excuses about how he wasn't ready to be a father. To put it bluntly, he made it clear that living carefree was more important to him than the family he helped create. Because of that, my children grew up without him. Our two oldest, who are now teenagers, know exactly what he did, and they want nothing to do with him. My youngest was only a baby when he left, so she doesn't even remember him. To her, he's just a story, not someone she knows. Recently, he reached out to me. He told me the karma train had run him over. According to him, he had been diagnosed with a terminal illness as a result of the lifestyle choices he made. He even sent me paperwork as proof. Now he wants to come back, reconnect with the kids, and in his words, spend what time he has left with family. On top of that, he says he wants me to be there as his caretaker when he eventually passes away. He actually had the nerve to tell me, "Now isn't the time for I told you so's." The way I see it, this is another one of his messes that he expects me and the kids to clean up. And honestly, I don't buy into the whole terminal part. With modern medication, many people can live long, full lives. I think he's trying to dramatize the situation to guilt me into letting him back in. So here I am, torn between anger and disbelief. Why should it fall on me and the kids to give him a soft landing after everything he put us through? He thinks the kids will regret not spending time with him now that he's sick. But from where I'm standing, they'll only remember the years he wasn't there. So, am I the jerk? Update. Thanks to everyone who commented. There was a lot of helpful information. I talked to the two older kids to get their input. I wanted to be transparent with them about the situation. I told them that their dad was sick and had reached out, asking to reconnect. Their reactions told me everything I needed to know. Our oldest actually laughed when she heard. She said, word for word, that he deserved it. There was no hesitation in her voice, just pure dismissal. Our middle child, who usually avoids confrontation, flat out said she doesn't want to speak to him. Neither of them carry any sense of obligation towards him, and I can't say I blame them. He abandoned them when they needed him the most, and they've built up their own walls because of that. As for our youngest, she was only one when he left. To her, the idea of him is just that, an idea. She doesn't remember him holding her, playing with her, or being present. He's just a concept, and she feels no attachment at all. Because of that, I've decided I will not bring him back into their lives unless a court forces me to. I never sent him the post myself, but apparently someone else did. He called me this morning yelling about it. He claimed that he has another health issue and that his illness will make it worse. According to him, that means he'll need extra help. He also said that having this diagnosis automatically qualifies him for disability benefits, so he won't be a financial burden. He tried to spin it as if that should make me more willing to let him move back in. But the truth is, he wouldn't be a financial burden anyway, because I have no intention of letting him in. A lot of people commented that he might be lying, gaslighting, or exaggerating, and I agree. Knowing him, it would not surprise me. He's a heavy smoker and has always been careless with his health, so it's hard to separate fact from performance when he talks. Either way, the answer is still no. Last edit, because a lot of you predicted this. I finally told him flat out that I was not going to force the kids to have a relationship with him. If they chose not to, that was their decision, and I was going to respect it. His response floored me. He said, "Fine, I still need you though." The audacity of that message left me speechless. He didn't even bother hiding it. It wasn't about the kids at all. It was about him wanting someone to take care of him when things got tough. Luckily, he lives a state over and doesn't have a car right now, so I feel fairly safe from him just showing up at my doorstep. For now, my priority is keeping my kids safe and focusing on our lives without letting his drama pull us back in. He literally abandoned you and his children and never gave it a second thought. Now that he's dying, he needs something from you. I hope you don't give it to him, not the jerk. Having been the caregiver for a man I deeply loved, I beg you not to take this on. It was an extremely difficult, drawn-out time for me, my children, and their families. And that was with a man who had always been a caring husband and father. You do not owe your ex anything. There are public services that can help care for him. He chose to live without his family, so now he lives with that choice. If you want to know what caregiving for a terminally ill patient is really like, feel free to DM me. You can also join caregiver support groups and see the experiences others share. I liked AARP caregivers, where members exchange information and vent. Instead of asking Reddit, I'd recommend taking the same question to those groups. No need for "I told you so." How about "I'm telling you that you have nothing left to offer us except a social security check once you pass. So the best thing I can do for our kids is to let that happen sooner than later and as far as away from them as possible. Bye." Not the jerk. So this guy ditches his kids for years, then wants to come back and get a hero's farewell? Oh, please. That's not a family reunion. That's hospice shopping. And he expects his ex to be the caretaker too. The only thing he's qualified for is a spot on the do not disturb list. Am I the jerk for not siding with my wife over our son's ex-girlfriend's pregnancy? My son just turned 16. He had been dating a girl the same age, maybe a few months older, but they broke up about a month ago. The relationship seemed typical for teenagers, nothing too serious, a lot of hanging out, a lot of drama, and then suddenly it was over. We thought that was the end of it. 3 weeks later, her parents called us over for a serious conversation. That was when they told us she was pregnant. She was already slightly showing, and the dates lined up when both she and my son were still together. My wife and I both went into full-blown panic. The thought of our son, barely 16, about to become a father, hit us like a truck. We didn't tell him right away. We wanted to gather ourselves first, figure out how to approach this. A couple of days later, we sat him down. He looked confused when we told him that his ex was pregnant. His first words were that it wasn't his. He insisted they had never gone that far. I'll admit, I didn't believe him at first. Hearing him deny everything made me think he was just panicking and trying to get out of trouble, but he kept repeating himself. At first, I thought he was lying to save his skin. Then he started explaining, in his teenage blunt way. He admitted he had cheated on her too, which made us furious with him, but his story was consistent. For all his faults, it felt like he was telling the truth about this. My wife, however, wasn't buying it for a second. She was convinced he was lying. To her, it looked like classic boy behavior, denying responsibility and leaving the girl to deal with the fallout. A week later, we had a meeting with the girl's parents. The atmosphere was tense from the start. My wife opened the conversation by saying we needed to accept that our son was the father and figure out what support would look like. She started talking about money, childcare, and logistics as if it were already decided. That was when my son spoke up. He said very clearly that it wasn't his baby. He said they had never hooked up. He was angry, red-faced, and he didn't sound like he was just making excuses. He repeated what he had told me before about how far things had gone, and that was it. His ex admitted they hadn't done much, though she insisted there had been one occasion that lined up with her pregnancy timeline. She described the event, when and where it happened, and I'll admit it sounded believable on the surface. But even then, there were details that just didn't sit right. I know my son is reckless. I know he can be immature, but as his father, I also know when he's lying to me. And this time, for all his other nonsense, I believed him. My wife did not. She was furious with me afterward. She said I was enabling him. She accused me of being part of the culture where boys deny responsibility and women are left holding the bag. She reminded me that we were both 17 when she got pregnant with our son, and she said history was repeating itself. She said by not siding with her, I was leaving her alone to deal with the mess. To her point, she's the one who has continued meeting with the other family. I've stepped back. I told her I won't engage further until we have proof of paternity. To me, it's insane to plan our lives around a baby that may not even be ours. The girl's parents have said they don't want to do a paternity test until after the baby is born. They claim it could be harmful, even though I've since read that prenatal testing is safe. So here we are, stuck in limbo, with months to go and no answers. My wife is angry with me for what she calls burying my head in the sand. I'm angry with her for acting like judge and jury without evidence. Our son is furious with everyone. The ex's family is looking to us for support. And all I want to know is the truth before we turn our lives upside down. I'm sorry if this is a bit ranty, but I needed to get off some steam. So, am I the jerk? Not the jerk. But there shouldn't be any sides until after the paternity test. Also, do not sign the birth certificate until a DNA test has been done. By signing the birth certificate, your son is making a legal declaration that he is the father, which in some places is nearly impossible to undo. The only correct answer. In my small town, we had about 10 teen pregnancies, and half turned into huge scandals. 3 of these babies turned out not to belong to who the girls claimed. Teens lie, especially in life-altering situations like this. Getting angry isn't proof. There can be justified indignation on both sides. Either do a test now or cut off communication until the baby is born and tested. Until then, your job is to support your son and believe him, just as her family will support and believe her. This sounds like a whole lot of drama with no test to back it up. All solved by one simple DNA swab. Exactly. Less drama, more science. That's all for now, but don't be blue. We'll be back soon with more stories for you. Remember to listen to Mr. Redder every night, so your dreams will be wonderful like you are and bright. Now click this playlist, come follow along. We'll be right here. Until then, so long.